Unchosen was a wild ride. I'm telling my kids that this was Adam and Eve and their friend Steve. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, it's Nay. Welcome back to my little corner of YouTube. This video will contain spoilers for Unchosen, but I am going to do a short and quick spoiler-free section at the front, just in case you want to know what it's about, but you don't want me to ruin it for you. And I'm actually literally going to do that right now, so I don't know why I just didn't do it. Unchosen is a new religious drama on Netflix. I believe it's meant to be a limited series, but I'm actually not quite sure on that, because I don't think Netflix has it listed as a limited series, and usually they do that. But it is based around this religious cult, the Fellowship of the Divine, and kind of around this little girl named Grace. Early on, something really traumatic happens to Grace, and it sets in motion all of these other things to start happening around the Fellowship of the Divine, including an outsider or an unchosen that they welcome into their church, which is typically against the rules because usually you have to be born into it. It's a cult, right? It covers a lot of the things that you would expect it to: temptation, sexual exploration, sin. It's a contemporary show. There are only 6 episodes. I literally watched it in one day, so you don't have to spend weeks. All of the episodes are out already. I think it's definitely worth a watch. I enjoyed the show. I would say, as far as trigger warning goes, if you have any religious trauma, this might not be the one for you, because you know it could be triggering. There is a brief SA in episode 3, but as far as that goes, it's really easy to fast forward through, and watching it and seeing it is not integral to the story. It's also not violent, so all of those things. There is one that takes place, but preface with that. It also covers the struggles of infertility, so if that's a sensitive topic for you, you might want to skip that one, because that kind of is a through line throughout the show. The show is kind of slow but also steady at the same time, and that's going to do it for the spoiler free aspect. So if you haven't seen it yet and you do not want spoilers, save this video and come back after you do. You are about to hear my thoughts on Unchosen, but of course I want to hear yours, so feel free to drop your thoughts below if you do want to participate in the conversation, and give this video a like and a hype, or you're going to be recruited by a religious cult. I think I might be an unreliable narrator when it comes to this show, because I cannot tell if Sam is supposed to be the villain or not. And I know that sounds crazy, because clearly we all know he's the villain, but like, am I supposed to be rooting for him, or am I not supposed to be rooting for him? Maybe trouble simply does find him no matter what, and it's not his fault. Like, maybe that is the case.
And now, because of what happened, I'm right back where I fucking started, and I just want out.
And the reason that it sounds like I'm struggling with this is because I am. I don't have a problem rooting for the villain per se, but I do have a problem rooting for a flat out murderer. Then again, I am in love with, so maybe I don't have a problem rooting for the murderer. Anyway, while I was on board with his first 2 murders being accidents, he just kept going. He caught an additional body while he was at the Fellowship of the Divine, and then he almost caught 2 more. So I really am kind of stuck in between, is this man really bad, or does he just happen to end up in these situations? As a viewer, I feel like I kind of am in the position of Mason, Sam's brother. Mason spends his entire life going to bat for his brother. Literally, he gets physically beat up for his brother's wrongdoings, and he defends him to no end. He's like, he was wrong place, wrong time, he didn't mean to kill her, like all of these things, right? But then in the end, he has to grapple with the fact that maybe his brother just might be as bad as everyone says that he is. And so as a viewer, I kind of feel like that. I'm like, man, maybe he isn't that bad of a guy. He does want to do good in the world. But then by the end, I'm like, shit, this man might actually be terrible. I wanted Sam to be free. I did not want him to go back to prison, even though he killed his girlfriend, even though he killed the girlfriend's cousin. I wanted him to be free, even if that freedom came in the form of him being indoctrinated into the Fellowship of the Divine. As a viewer, I feel like I spent 4.5 episodes being like, you're gonna be okay, Sam, everything's gonna be okay. And then by episodes 5 and 6, I was like, damn, this man might actually be terrible. And that's why I still feel like I'm grappling with it, because it's kind of like a cult. It's like, no, but he told me he was good. Everything he told me was good. And when you find out that the cult is actually bad, you're like, but you told me you were good though. And it's this cognitive dissonance. You're like, but I trusted you when you told me you were good. Even though everything I'm seeing says you're bad. In that way, that's how I view him as a person. And that's how I view him as a cult within himself. Like, he is the cult of Sam, because you so much want to believe that he could do no wrong, but clearly he can. And to take it a step further, I think that Sam might be the devil personified. And I say that because he was depicted as the devil in a few different ways. One way is simply because of the fact that he is unchosen. From a religious aspect, or maybe just a life aspect in general, when you think about someone who comes into your life or comes into your church, and as soon as they get there, it seems like everything just starts to go wrong. They only bring trouble. They only bring evil. And I mean pure evil. People who are murderers, people who are manipulators, people who do things that even non-religious people would classify as evil. People like that. When you think about that, you might consider that person to be evil or to be the devil personified, because it takes a specific caliber of a type of person to do evil things. I am not the most religious person, but I wholeheartedly believe that evil exists in this world, and therefore I think that it exists within people. And I do think that there are some people who come into your life. I definitely know that there are people who have come into my life, and it feels like their only intention was to be evil towards me. And I mean really fucking evil. I believe that there is evil in this world, and I believe that it manifests in some people. They let him into their church. Granted, their church is a bit culty, but they let him in, and he completely turned it upside down. One might say that he brought evil into their lives. On the other hand, Sam did bring some good into their lives in a way. He saved Gracie, and if you want to look at it in this way, he also brought to light a lot of the stuff in the cult that was being done in the dark, which is also a religious kind of aspect. Because of him, Mrs. Phillips was finally able to leave her terrible husband. Mr. Phillips, we know, didn't actually kill Isaac, but he was a bad guy. He assaulted multiple women because he used his power to do so. He separated families in the church. We know that he separated his own wife from their son. So surely he deserved to pay for that. Maybe he wasn't an actual murderer by killing Isaac, but he was a bad man, and he did deserve to see justice for his wrongdoings. Sam was also the catalyst for Rosie and Gracie getting out of the cult. And so in a sick and twisted way, he was their savior. Another way that I feel Sam is depicted as the devil personified is the fact that we have Rosie and Anthony, Isaac's son, going devil hunting. And we only see them do it a couple of times, but the way that I felt it was presented to me is that this is something they always do. They always go devil hunting. It's a game, very strange game, but it's a game that they play as kids. But on the night of Isaac's funeral, they go devil hunting again because Rosie wants to try to cheer up Isaac.
Going on a devil hunt, me and Anthony.
But the thing that's different about that night is that they actually find the devil, and they find him in Sam. Not only is his silhouette surrounded by red when they see him from the window, but when Gracie shines her light, again, a biblical reference, when she shines her light on him, she sees that it's him. And it's kind of this moment of, oh, again, this man I thought I could trust is actually the devil. What's done in the dark will come to light. He's the devil that I've been hunting. And this might be a reach, but the final way that I feel Sam is depicted as the devil is because of his name. We know him as Sam Carter, but his actual name is Sam Devlin, which in my opinion is dangerously close to Sam Devil. Now let's talk about this love story between Sam and Rosie. Listen, I always judge the Twilight girlies because we all know that Twilight is cringe, but that's what makes it great, right? Is that it's so cringe. But I always judge them, and they kind of have that connection to fan fiction because 50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fan fiction. If you don't know, now you know. And so I do judge them a little bit, even though I can enjoy the series for what it is. But I fear that I have to stop judging them because I might be a fan fiction girly myself. I want an alternate ending, a new book series, something about Rosie and Sam ending up together, and I need it like yesterday. And the way that that man was looking into my soul in that last shot, he got me. I fear that I might be the new member of his fellowship. I could tell from the very moment that she saw this man coming up out of the water like a tatted up merman that she wanted his chain dangling in her face, and she got that, and I love that for her. Unchosen was written by Julie Gearey. I think that's how I pronounce her name. And before I even looked that up, I already knew that this was written by a woman because, come on, he kissed her forehead after sex. A man would not have written that. Let's just be honest. He also said, look at me during when her husband makes her turn and face the wall like she's a prisoner. And I just know that a woman wrote that. Only a woman would write that. Now there is this question of if Sam was just using her like he used Adam, because it's clear that he used Adam, and he also says, I manipulated you. But if I'm going to be honest, I don't think that he did. Oh, this is just me. I've been indoctrinated by him. I don't think that he did. I think it's actually quite the opposite. I think he genuinely did fall in love with Rosie, and he just doesn't know how to love the people that he loves, and so he hurts them instead, which is like a weird thing, but like that is how I feel like it played out. I initially thought that this show was going to be based around Gracie just because of how it started out, and I guess in a way it did end up kind of being Gracie's story, because like I said, she is the catalyst for how all of this gets started. But I guess I thought it would be more about her. And listen, that scene of her drowning in the beginning stressed me the hell out, because I just recently learned how to swim probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and that is the reason that I learned, because I was like, what if I just end up in water one day? I want to at least have a chance of getting out. So that's why I learned how to swim, and yeah, that led me to spend a ridiculous amount of money on swim lessons, but I learned how to swim and now I love it. It's so much fun. I wish that I would have done it sooner, and I highly suggest learning if you don't know how. I do want to discuss the children though, because although they're not a huge focus of the story per se, they are at the center of the church. I mentioned before that you need to be born into the fold. We know that they are rarely, if ever, exposed to anything in the outside world. That's confirmed when Rosie and Sam first hook up, and he talks to her about how it's not like in the movies, and she says, well, I've never seen a movie before.
It's not like the films, is it? Romantic, first time.
I've never seen a film.
You are so fucking weird.
For it to presumably be the 2020s and this woman's never seen a movie, yeah, you know that they're running a pretty strict program over there. We also have the kids reading secular comic books, and Gracie in particular being told if she continues to read it that she's going to hell. Flat out telling the 7-year-old that they're going to hell is crazy. But there is this idea of putting the fear of God into children, because in a few years from now, the children are going to be the one to kind of take things over and be the new leaders. And so the younger you start, the better. In fact, the entire reason that Gracie ran in the first place is because she thought the rapture was happening. If you indoctrinate them as children, most of them will fall in line. And we unfortunately saw this take place with Anthony, Isaac's son, when Isaac was being held captive. He didn't even want to go visit his father through a door out of fear of being tainted. He also was an active participant in his father's humiliation ritual, punishment.
I'm sorry, okay? Hey, Daddy's here.
Devil.
And since we're here, let's actually discuss some of the punishments in Unchosen. I was basically 100% sure that they were going to cut out Isaac's tongue because they kept saying that they were going to silence him, but it turns out that they just meant they were going to put him in isolation. But at least having his tongue cut out would have been a temporary physical pain, because what they actually put this man through was worse, in my opinion. Forcing him to hear his family continue to live their lives right outside of the door while he could not interact with them is tough. Those are his children, that's his wife. They also made him miss the birth of his second son, and the fellowship physically turned their backs on him. It's one thing to hear people say that they're disappointed in you and metaphorically turn their backs on you, but when you're standing in the center and everyone that you know and all the people that you have grown up with and your friends, your loved ones, they physically turn their backs on you, that hits different. I don't care how far removed he was, how he had stepped outside, that hurts because those are people who you care about. And that has to take a toll mentally. One piece of punishment that I didn't understand though was making him get drunk. I don't know, maybe they wanted to purge all the evil out of him by making him throw up, so maybe that's what it was, but that little piece I'm still kind of confused on. Adam also seems to take great pleasure in making his brother suffer, and he purposely makes him drink even more whiskey. But I do have a theory that Adam turned his brother in because he couldn't turn himself in, and so by punishing his brother, he felt like he was punishing himself. Adam, like many other people who grew up extremely religious, was gay, and of course he was told that that was a sin. So he not only hid it from everyone that he knows, but he also tried to suppress those feelings. He makes his wife turn away from him during sex, and I initially thought that he was doing it because they only thought that sex was a means to an end, so they only had sex to reproduce. But he actually was making her turn away because he was not attracted to her because he wants to be with a man. He doesn't like women, and looking at her, I think, physically turned him off. He also seems to use sex as a punishment against Rosie, but again, really kind of against himself. He's punishing himself because he doesn't enjoy sex with her, not even a little bit. At Isaac's funeral, he talks about how he came second to his brother, and he was jealous because of it, and that even in death, his brother did something first that he's not going to do. His brother's going to heaven before him.
He's the first to drive, to marry, build a family, and now he's first to go on his final journey.
Although I don't really know if his brother's quite going to heaven because he was heavily sinning before he died and they hadn't necessarily welcomed him back into the fold yet. So I don't know, but regardless, he feels like his brother is always one-upping him, and now he's done the eternal one-up. When it comes to the fellowship, it has a lot going on as well. We know that the fellowship is in no way small. It's not just in this town, because the reason that Adam ends up getting a leadership position is because one of the other leaders goes to the Canada chapter, and now there's an opening. They are presumably all over the world, maybe even in a quiet town near you and me. They are organized and they are tight-knit, and apparently they are not germaphobes, because I wouldn't be eating a piece of bread after all y'all hands been on it. Imagine being the last person to eat the piece of bread. Everybody. Kids have the grossest hands. They touch everything, okay? I'm not eating a piece of bread that you touched. It's just not happening. As mentioned, they don't let people in that often, but when Adam is thinking about letting Sam in, he gives him this whole spiel, so it's clear that they have some type of script for letting people in.
There's no poverty in the fellowship. There's no homelessness. It's just love.
He's selling the fellowship to him as some form of utopia. In line with that, they tend to move the goalposts to fit their narrative at any given time.
Our suffering brings us closer to God. But where is the love in all of this, Mum? You always taught me Jesus is love. Love comes in different ways.
Jesus is love, but suffering brings us closer to Jesus, and so Jesus is suffering. I mentioned earlier that the devil, that being Sam, brought a lot of trouble to their lives. But he also brought to light a lot of the stuff that was already taking place. Rosie was already in a bad marriage. Adam was already gay. Mr. Phillips was already a terrible person. He didn't make those things happen, he just brought them to light. And there's also clearly corruption happening in this town and in the fellowship, because Mr. Phillips absolutely should have gone to prison for them thinking that he killed Isaac. That should have happened, but he's allowed to come back home and let the fellowship deal with him. He was set free, ultimately to be taken care of by the fellowship. So there is kind of this idea of, we don't deal with the law, but we deal with our own people, and the law and the town outside of this accepts that. If you've watched any of my movie or scripted series breakdowns, you know that I am a sucker for cinematography. So there are a few different cinematography moments that stood out to me in Unchosen. When we first see Sam in the chicken coop, we get a flashback to him in prison, and he's staring in this broken mirror in his cell, which in and of itself symbolizes bad luck, at least in America. I don't know if it's the same in Britain, but in America, a broken mirror is bad luck. But we get this double view of him. The broken side of the mirror is well lit, which is interesting because you would think that the broken side of the mirror, that being the broken and imperfect side of Sam, would be the part that's darker and hidden, because typically people hide their trauma, hide their darkness, hide their imperfection. When in the shot, it's actually his darker side that's on the side of the mirror that's perfectly fine. This could mean that the good side of him, the light side, is the broken side. Maybe he wants to be good, but there's something in him that's just stopping him from being good. Even when he tries to be good, trouble finds him. And that's why the lighter side of him is the broken side. On the other hand, his darker side, the intact side of the mirror, is perfectly fine. And maybe that's to say, he's not hiding his darkness. It's in plain sight. You either choose to see it or not, but it is ever present. Right after that scene of him in prison, we get the scene of Isaac being held prisoner in his own home, which of course is, are you really free? Sam wasn't free when he is in prison. Isaac also isn't free because he's a member of this cult. I also think the setup of the church is really interesting. I obviously haven't stepped foot in every single church, but typically for a smaller church like this, mega churches don't really apply, but smaller churches like this, the pews are all parallel facing the front of the room. But at the Fellowship of the Divine, everything is secular. And so there could be something, I mean, there's definitely something deeper there about the fact that darkness and light and the way that the room is lit up and it's green and evil and good kind of go hand in hand. So that's secular. There's definitely something there, in my opinion. There's also this small little moment of Mrs. Phillips letting her hair down. You know, we typically tend to use let your hair down as a phrase that means be carefree, be a little bit more fun. And she's getting ready to go live a new life. She's letting her hair down, literally and figuratively. In the end, Sam not only gets away with everything, but he becomes the new leader of the Fellowship of the Divine. I'm so interested to hear what you guys think of that. I think there are two ways that we can view it. Either that was his plan the whole time, or he initially went in with good intentions and then he flipped halfway through. I think it's the latter. I think before he started infiltrating the Fellowship in order to take it over, he did initially want to leave with Rosie, because like I said, I think that he did fall in love with her. But once he saw that the Fellowship meant authority and protection, he decided to stay. None of these people watch TV. None of these people have access to TV. None of these people know who he is. And the even scarier part is that even if they find out the truth about him, by the time anyone comes looking for him, the cops, whatever, they're going to protect him because he's the new leader. So nothing's going to happen to him. That's the implication, is that nothing's going to happen to this man. He's not going back to prison. I also wonder, because of the fact that Sam just might be evil through and through, if we can trust any version of his stories that he told. With his girlfriend, he says that he was wasted and he blacked out, and that's why he accidentally killed her. With the girlfriend's cousin, he says he attacked him. That's the only way that it's ever presented to us, both in the flashback and when he tells Rosie about it. But how do we know that that's true? We saw him in the show attempt 3 murders, be successful in 1, and he did not hesitate. He purposely ran Isaac off the road. He started choking Mr. Phillips, and the only reason he stopped is because Gracie saw him. He also started to drown Rosie, and he only stopped that because his need to repent kicked in, that, or he just realized if he stops trying to kill her, he'll be able to make his way into the fold even more and he'll become the leader. Maybe he wants to be good, but he simply cannot. He has a hard time doing it.
It's not my fault, okay?
How can you say that?
Because there's something wrong with me, Rosie. I'm fucking wired wrong. I get this
this noise in my head and I can't control it.
And so when he retells these stories about how everything was just an accident, that might be the good in him wanting to come through. But the reality is, we don't know what happened between him and his girlfriend, and we don't know what happened between him and the girlfriend's cousin. Maybe he attacked him. We have no idea. He also tells Rosie that he was getting ready to get out, but we hear that he was serving a life sentence. Now, life doesn't mean for the rest of your life. Life typically in America is like, I think it's like a 20 or 30 year sentence or something. That's what life is considered. But we don't know if he had parole. We don't know. We don't know if he was getting ready to get out, actually. That's just what he told us. Rosie just happened to get lucky because, like I said, I do think he had a little bit of love for her. His girlfriend was not as lucky. It's also not lost on me how timely this show is. Right now, there is a ton of conversation around Christianity and traditional values and this idea of reverting back to 1950s household styles. And this isn't a video about how I think that narrative is BS, because I do, but this isn't that video. But when we look at shows like The Handmaid's Tale and of course Unchosen, there is a clear representation of the fact that this is happening in modern day, but it's just not society as we know it. The Handmaid's Tale does not take place in the 1950s. It doesn't take place in the 1800s. It doesn't take place in any of those times. It takes place in the 2010s into the 2020s. Unchosen is the same. It's not a period piece. It's happening right now. We first find this out when Gracie is saved and Isaac pulls out a phone and Rosie looks at him like, what the hell are you doing with a phone, sir? Why do you have that? We also see a little girl on a switch when Gracie's in the hospital. That might even be a switch too. This is very current. At the forefront of this push for more traditional values, of course, comes traditional gender roles. And it's so drilled into Adam that even when his wife is trying to speak logically to him and say, hey, you turned your brother in for having a cell phone, but that cell phone is the only reason that our daughter is alive. Even then, he's like, why don't you stay in a woman's place? You don't get to tell me what to do.
I don't have to tell you anything. Ephesians chapter 5, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. Maybe try and remember that.
That's how drilled in the gender roles are to him. In Handmaid's Tale, the infertile wives also play a pretty large part in the birth of the children, even though they can't have children of their own. And that's probably triggering for them. I thought of that when I saw Rosie have to be present at the birth of her nephew, even though we know that she was struggling to conceive, and that probably was really triggering for her to see someone have a baby. I'm going to be honest though, in Adam's and Rosie's situation, I don't think that infertility is coming from Rosie's part. I think it's actually coming from Adam. And I don't think it's because Adam is infertile or anything like that. I think it's because Adam is not completing the act. Because he's not attracted to her. He's actually turned off by her. He doesn't like women, so I just don't think he's getting there, you know? I think it was probably very hard for them to conceive Gracie. We also have the idea of this older woman as kind of the overseer of the women. In Handmaid's Tale, it was Aunt Lydia, and Unchosen is Mrs. Phillips. And she's a whole ass hater.
Your mummy was out early this morning, wasn't she? Don't go to the woods again.
When Rosie tells her mom that Adam SA'd her mom responds,
I'm so sorry, Rosie.
Because he loved and he gave.
See, Adam, is he? He's a good man.
Even in that moment, the man comes first. And the sad part about it is that her mom's sorry sounds like it's from a place of, yeah, I can relate, but there's nothing we can do about it. That's how it sounds. It doesn't sound like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, let's go tell someone. It sounds like, yeah, I figured that would happen eventually. But he's a good man. He's a good man, Savannah. And then we have Mr. Phillips, who is a stereotypical cult leader and can't keep his hands to himself. And he isn't a stranger to do it. He probably does it with several women in the fellowship. And the wife knows it because behind closed doors, she's calling him out on it.
More upset than when she arrived. So you did not raise your voice. Why can't you keep your filthy hands to yourself?
He also physically abuses her, on top of keeping her away from their son. Or so he thinks, because we know that they're still in contact. Like I mentioned, I think Unchosen is meant to be a limited series, but the way that they left it at the end is very open-ended. We definitely could get another season and see how Sam takes over the cult and all of that. On the flip side, I'm perfectly okay with how it ended. I love that everything didn't get wrapped up in a nice bow. For example, we don't know what happened to Mr. Phillips. We last saw him locked up in that room when Mason discovers him. And my assumption, the story that I'm going with in my head, is that he's going to remain locked up. Either that or Sam is just going to flat out kill him. We also don't know what happens to Adam. The last scene that we see Sam and Adam in, Sam is telling him, look how easy it was for me to manipulate you. Your brother was right. You ain't shit. It was that easy. And then he shows Adam the video of their special time together.
All I had to do was manipulate you, Adam. Because that's who you are.
But we don't know what happens to Adam. The theory that I'm going with is that Adam has some type of psychotic break. He was already on the verge of breaking, when he had to send the old woman off to glory and he couldn't do it. He was already at kind of the edge of breaking. And I think it was just a little flick was the last thing that he needed, and that flick was Sam telling him, yeah, I manipulated you and I have proof that this is what you like. And I think that pushed him over the edge. I think he had a psychotic break and that's how Sam ended up stepping up. Or, Sam just kind of thumbed him down and said, I'm the new leader now. And that's how it happened. But I absolutely want to hear all of your theories on everything. Let me know if you think I got something wrong, if there's something that I didn't point out that you wish I would have pointed out. When I saw that this was coming out, I knew that I wanted to watch it. One, because I am really fascinated by cults. And I know I'm not alone in that. There's a huge group of people who just love to learn about cults because of the intricacies and how they get people, how one person typically gets people to follow behind them and listen to them and think that they're directly the voice of God. I've always been fascinated by them. Additionally, and this is something that I've never spoken about on my YouTube channel, I was recruited by a cult. I'm not going to say which one. I'm not going to mention any names of any other cults because some of them, they know who they are. Some of them will go after you, and I don't want to have to fight a cult. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm definitely not going to mention the name of the one that I was recruited by, but I was. Not only was I recruited, but I actually went to the church for a very long time. Over a year, probably closer to 2 years, maybe closer to 3. And you're probably like, girl, you saying recruited, you were in a cult. And technically, yes, I was. Okay, technically, by definition, yes, I was in a cult. However, in my mind, I genuinely was going because of my pure fascination. And I just wanted to learn about it from the inside. It was an inside job. I was recruited my first year in college because they typically want to recruit really young people because it's easier to manipulate you when you're young. That's kind of their whole thing: manipulation, indoctrination, separation. They used one of the only other black girls in the cult to do the recruiting because, let's be real, you're typically going to respond better to someone who looks like you and maybe has some similarities to you. So yeah, they used the black girl to recruit me. Well, they did recruit me. That they did. And yeah, so this is my first year in college. This is before I had a car, so I was standing at the bus stop. When I tell y'all that this bus was on time every time, and this day it was not, I was looking like they about to rope me into this conversation, and they did. 20 minutes we sat there, we talked, we exchanged information. I was genuinely interested in listening to it because, like I said, I could tell off rip that this isn't a regular Christianity. You could tell the difference. If you've ever been approached by one, you could tell the difference. And so I listened because I'm interested in it. And when I say interested, I'm talking, I was 10, 11 years old watching cult documentaries on the National Geographic and History channels, fully invested, learning about, I love the psychology behind it. One interesting thing about this cult that I was recruited by is that all of the leaders, at least the ones at the church that I went to, were really young. I was 18. These people could not have been over 26. Typically, cult leaders tend to be old men, but yeah, everyone here was really young. I think I might have been part of the young, sector. Now, I had only ever been to 2 locations, the one that I'm talking about, the smaller one, but there was also a mega church that we would go to for, church holidays and stuff like that. They were and still are very active and growing. I don't know if I want to say that part. Redacted. And when I tell y'all they had an answer for everything, they had an answer for everything. If I had any science-based questions, they would answer those. They actually told me during one of my first initial meetings with them, like when I went to the church, I sat down and they grilled me for 2 hours. They were like, if you Google us, it's going to say we're a cult, but we're not. Those are just non-believers and all this stuff. And I was like, now why would you say that? Obviously, I had already known that they were because I looked them up before, but just knowing that that's the way that they do it is they'll be like, don't Google, because if you Google, it's going to say something. And yeah, they were ready to answer any and everything, and the answers were good. Okay, these were very methodical answers. The connections made sense. They made it make sense. And it is completely true that with cults, slow and steady wins the race. It started off by them being like, why don't you come to church once a week? And then it was like, why don't you help us cook or clean or set up? Why don't you go on this outing with us? It was very much like that. Before I knew it, I really was there multiple times a week. And of course, they do this to separate you from friends and family so that eventually they become your only friends and family. In addition to that, of course, everything was very traditional values. Men and women were separated. Actually, the only time we ever came together, boys and girls, I was 18, so to me, boys and girls, was, also, I rarely ever saw children. I'll say that too. I feel like the one that I was a part of was strictly young people, and so it was people who didn't have kids yet. They weren't married yet. Like they were trying to put us together is what it was. But they separated us. The only time we ever came together was during church meetings, but it was very much women in the kitchen type of thing. And I'm also gonna end this little backstory by saying I would not suggest doing this. As much as I genuinely wanted to go because I love learning about cults and I wanted to learn about one from the inside, they know how to pick people. I've talked several times before on my channel about how I had kind of a really rough go at it growing up. I had a lot of hard times growing up, a lot of traumatic experiences. I'm sure that they could pick up on that because I'm of the belief that when you are someone who have experienced trauma, it's kind of like people who have experienced trauma tend to attract other people who have experienced trauma. I've seen that to be true in my life. I tend to bond better with people who, you know, got some shit going on. And there probably is a part of me that at 18 years old was looking to make things better and kind of find somewhere where I felt welcomed. And so while in my mind I'm saying I wanted to go because I just wanted to learn more, I'm sure there's a part of me that continued to go because it felt good to have a group of people who understood me. And had I continued to go, I probably would have slipped in a little bit. I probably would have lost sight of the vision. And I actually think the girl who initially recruited me got out, and that's why I stopped being contacted. Who knows what would have happened had she would have still been a part of it. So yeah, stay safe out there. Do not recommend joining a cult. Listen, and I wasn't even all the way in it. I got out before they really kind of, you know, started doing all the stuff. But again, I went in aware. If you don't go in aware, they can get you. This video is probably going to be a bit long, so if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Also, if you enjoyed my breakdown on this show, check out my other videos on scripted series and movies. I'll have them linked in the description box. I've covered a few different things. Poor Things, Saltburn. I recently covered Something Very Bad Is Gonna Happen. A few things, and I'm excited to cover more scripted series and shows in the near future. So yeah, I am going to go work on editing this, and until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye! This is my favorite sweater, and it has a permanent stain on it now, and I'm so annoyed, but just know, I just took this out of the clean clothes, so if you see me wearing this sweater, and you're like, why does she keep wearing that dirty ass sweater? It's because it's a permanent stain, okay? It's clean. Spoilers for Unchosen? I hate when I have a long video to record and I start off fumbling. Hey y'all, it's Nate. Welcome back to my little corner. Oh wait, I already did that part. This video will contain spoilers for Chosen. No, that's not even the name of the show. Depicted as the devil personated. Girl, I didn't even check to make sure this mic was actually working before I started. Okay, ooh, you never know. Listen, sometimes you record a whole damn video that should be silent and you just lose a little bit of yourself on the inside.